Two little girls walked alone in the rain when a millionaire's car stopped beside them. When he saw the youngest sister's cough, his hands started trembling. Sarah's wet shoes squeaked against the sidewalk as she clutched Maya's small hand tighter. The paper bags they carried were falling apart in the rain, their few belongings getting heavier with each step. A street lamp flickered above them, casting uncertain light on the empty street. "Sarah, I'm cold," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. The 6-year-old's braids dripped water down her back, and her uniform skirt was soaked through. "I know, Maya. Just—" Sarah's voice trailed off as she spotted headlights approaching. She quickly pulled her sister into the shadow of a store awning, holding her breath until the car passed. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she remembered what their mother had always told them. "If the police find you alone, they'll separate you." The events of the morning kept replaying in Sarah's mind. The school nurse calling her out of class, Maya crying in the office, their mother being rushed to the hospital, struggling to breathe. Severe pneumonia, the doctors had said. Then the endless waiting in plastic chairs until visiting hours ended, and they had no choice but to leave. "My chest hurts," Maya coughed, the sound wet and deep. Sarah quickly shrugged off her thin jacket and wrapped it around her sister's shoulders, ignoring the cold rain now hitting her bare arms. "We'll find somewhere soon," Sarah promised, though she had no idea where they could go. Their apartment was too far to walk, and the last bus had left 20 minutes ago. Their mother's phone was still in her hospital room, and Sarah didn't know anyone's number by heart. A police siren wailed in the distance, making Sarah's stomach clench. She remembered 3 years ago, the day their father left. The police had come then too, asking questions, writing in notebooks. She'd overheard them talking about the system and foster care. That was the last time she'd trusted any adult in a uniform. "Sarah?" Maya tugged at her sleeve. "I'm hungry." Sarah reached into one of the soggy paper bags and pulled out a squash sandwich from the hospital cafeteria. She'd saved half of hers, knowing Maya would get hungry later. As she handed it to her sister, the paper bag finally gave way, spilling their belongings onto the wet sidewalk. "No, no, no," Sarah muttered, scrambling to gather their things. Maya's spare socks, their mother's old photo, the small teddy bear their father had given Maya before he disappeared, all getting soaked in the puddles. The sound of an expensive car engine made Sarah freeze. A black Mercedes was slowing down beside them, its wheels cutting through the rain-filled gutters. Sarah grabbed Maya's hand again, ready to run, but Maya's legs wobbled, and another cough racked her small body. The car stopped. Sarah's heart hammered as the back window rolled down, revealing a man in an expensive suit. He looked at them with concerned eyes, but Sarah had learned that concern from strangers usually meant trouble. "Are you girls all right?" the man asked, his voice gentle. "You shouldn't be out here this late. Where are your parents?" Sarah took a step back, pulling Maya with her. "We're fine," she said firmly, trying to sound older than her 8 years. "Our mom is coming to get us." Maya coughed again, harder this time, doubling over. The man's hands gripped the car door, his knuckles turning white. "You're not fine," he said. "Your sister needs to get out of this rain. I can help." "We don't need help," Sarah cut him off, even as Maya wheezed beside her. She'd heard too many stories about men who offered help to little girls. Their mother had warned them countless times. The man reached for something in his jacket, and Sarah tensed, but he only pulled out a wallet. "My name is James Anderson. I'm on the hospital board at Detroit General." He held out an ID card. "Is that where your mother is?" Sarah stared at the ID, her mind racing. How did he know about their mother? Was he really from the hospital? Maya's cough had turned into a constant wheeze, and Sarah could feel her sister's hand trembling in hers. "I can call Gloria Thompson. She's the night social worker at the hospital. You can listen to the call. We need to get your sister somewhere warm and dry." A police car turned onto their street, its lights off, but unmistakable. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she looked between the approaching car and Mr. Anderson's concerned face. Maya pressed against her side, shivering violently. "Sarah," Maya whispered, her voice scratchy and weak, "can we trust him?" The police car was getting closer. Maya was sick. Their mother was in the hospital, and Sarah had to make a decision that could change everything. Rain poured down harder as Sarah stood on the edge of the sidewalk, caught between the memory of her father's empty promises and the reality of her sister's worsening cough. The world had taught her not to trust, but right now, trust might be the only thing that could save them. The police car's headlights swept past them as Sarah stepped closer to Mr. Anderson's Mercedes, keeping Maya behind her. Her fingers dug into the wet paper bag, her last grip on everything familiar. "Make the call," Sarah demanded, her voice shaking. "Right now." Mr. Anderson nodded, pulling out his phone. He put it on speaker and held it where they could see the screen. The number he dialed matched the one Sarah had seen posted in the hospital hallway earlier that day. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. "Gloria Thompson speaking." "Gloria, it's James Anderson. I'm sorry to call so late, but I've got an emergency. I found 2 girls outside in the rain. Their mother's a patient at Detroit General." "What are their names?" Gloria's voice sharpened with recognition. Sarah spoke up before Mr. Anderson could answer. "I'm Sarah Williams. This is my sister Maya. Our mom is Lisa Williams. She got admitted this morning." "Oh my God, yes. We've been trying to reach someone since visiting hours ended." "Where are you girls?" "Corner of Michigan and Trumbull," Mr. Anderson answered. "Gloria, the younger one's got a bad cough. They need somewhere warm tonight. The Haven House shelter has space. I'll call ahead. They'll break protocol for an emergency placement." "James, can you transport them?" Maya's cough erupted again, and this time she couldn't stop. Her small body shook with each ragged breath. Sarah felt her resistance crumbling as she watched her sister struggle. "Sarah," Mr. Anderson said quietly, "I know you're trying to protect your sister. That's what good big sisters do. But right now, protecting her means getting her out of this rain. Will you let me help?" Sarah looked at the phone, still connected to Gloria. Looked at Maya's pale face. Looked at the police car, now turning around at the end of the street. "If anything happens to us, Gloria knows who you are?" Sarah asked, her voice hard. "Yes, and I'll give you my business card. You can call anyone you want once we get to the shelter." Maya stumbled, exhausted and cold. Sarah caught her, feeling how hot her skin was despite the rain. "Okay," Sarah whispered. Then louder, "Okay. But we sit in the back, and I need to see your hands on the wheel the whole time." Mr. Anderson's face softened with understanding. "Of course. Gloria, we're heading to Haven House now. Can you meet us there? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Girls, hang tight." The call ended, and Mr. Anderson slowly opened his car door, telegraphing every movement. He stepped out into the rain, holding his umbrella over them as he opened the back door. Sarah helped Maya in first, then gathered their wet belongings. The leather seats were warm, and the car smelled like coffee and expensive cologne. Maya immediately curled into Sarah's side, her wet clothes soaking into the upholstery. "There are bottles of water in the door compartment," Mr. Anderson said as he got back into the driver's seat. He adjusted his mirror so Sarah could see his hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. "It's about a 15-minute drive." Sarah pulled out a water bottle, but didn't drink. She watched the street signs, memorizing their route. Her mother's warnings echoed in her head. Never get in a car with a stranger. But they'd run out of choices the moment Maya's cough got worse. "Your sister should see a doctor," Mr. Anderson said after a few minutes of silence. "That cough doesn't sound good." "We already saw doctors today," Sarah snapped. "They said Mom has pneumonia. They didn't even look at Maya. The shelter has a clinic. They can check her out tonight." Maya's breathing had settled into shallow gasps against Sarah's arm. The warmth of the car was making her drowsy, but Sarah forced herself to stay alert, watching every turn, every street name. "Why are you helping us?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Really?" Mr. Anderson's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "I have a daughter. She's grown now, but when she was about your age, we had some rough times. Someone helped us when we needed it. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person deciding to stop and help. And what do you want in return?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of Sarah's experience, of promises broken, of help that came with hidden costs. "Nothing," Mr. Anderson said firmly. "I want you and your sister to be safe. I want your mother to be able to focus on getting better without worrying where you are. That's all." Sarah didn't respond, but she felt Maya relax slightly against her. The streets were getting unfamiliar now, moving into a part of Detroit Sarah didn't know. Her fingers tightened around the water bottle. "There's Haven House," Mr. Anderson pointed to a large brick building with lights still on despite the late hour. A woman in a rain jacket was waiting under the covered entrance. Even from the car, Sarah recognized Gloria from the hospital. The car stopped, and Sarah's hand flew to the door handle. But Mr. Anderson made no move to get out, keeping his hands where she could see them. "Take your time," he said softly. "Gloria will explain everything. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Maya stirred, blinking at the bright lights of the shelter. "Sarah, are we safe now?" The question hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. She'd been so focused on the danger of trusting Mr. Anderson, she'd almost forgotten the danger of staying on the streets. "Let's go find out," Sarah whispered, helping Maya sit up. She gathered their wet bags, then took a deep breath. "Mr. Anderson?" "Yes." "Thank you for stopping. But if you're lying about any of this—" "I understand," he said, and in the mirror his eyes were serious. "You've got good instincts, Sarah. Don't lose them. But sometimes good people do exist." Gloria was walking toward the car now, her familiar face easing some of Sarah's tension. Maya's hand found hers in the darkness of the back seat. "Ready?" Sarah asked her sister. Maya nodded, her wet braids dripping onto the leather. "Can we call Mom tomorrow?" "First thing," Sarah promised, though she had no idea if that was true. She looked at the shelter, at Gloria's approaching figure, at Mr. Anderson's hands still visible on the wheel. "Sometimes good people do exist," he'd said. Sarah hoped, for Maya's sake, that this was one of those times. The shelter's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Gloria led them through empty hallways. Sarah's wet shoes squeaked against the linoleum floor, and Maya's cough echoed off the bare walls. Mr. Anderson had left after a brief conversation with Gloria, his business card now tucked into Sarah's pocket. "We'll get you girls checked in, then have the night nurse look at that cough," Gloria said, stopping at a desk where a tired-looking woman sat behind a computer. "They need to stay together," Sarah said quickly, gripping Maya's hand tighter. Gloria and the desk woman exchanged looks. "Sarah," Gloria started carefully, "Haven House has strict protocols. Children over 7 stay in the older wing, under 7s in the junior wing." "No." Sarah's voice cracked. "No, you can't separate us. I promised Mom I'd watch her." Maya pressed closer to Sarah's side, her small fingers trembling. "Please don't make me go alone." The desk woman typed something into her computer. "Gloria, we could put them in room 4J temporarily. It's a medical observation room," justified given the younger one's cough. "That works for tonight," Gloria nodded. "We'll sort out permanent arrangements tomorrow." Sarah's shoulders relaxed slightly, but she didn't let go of Maya's hand as they followed Gloria down another hallway. Room 4J was small, with 2 narrow beds and a window that looked out onto a dark parking lot. A nurse was already waiting inside, her purple scrubs bright under the harsh lighting. "I'm Nurse Chun," she smiled, patting one of the beds. "Let's take a look at that cough, sweetie." Maya looked at Sarah, who nodded reluctantly. While the nurse checked Maya's temperature and listened to her chest, Gloria helped Sarah spread their wet clothes over the radiator. 102.1, Nurse Chun announced, frowning. "And there's definitely congestion in her lungs. I'm going to start her on children's antibiotics tonight. We don't want her developing what your mother has." Sarah watched as the nurse gave Maya medicine and showed her how to use an inhaler. Her sister's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but the medicine seemed to ease her breathing. "Try to get some sleep," Nurse Chun said, placing a cup of water on the small table between the beds. "I'll be back to check on you in a few hours." After the nurse left, Gloria sat down on the edge of Sarah's bed. "I know this isn't ideal," she said quietly, "but you're safe here. There's security at every entrance and staff checking rooms every hour." "When can we see Mom?" Sarah asked, watching Maya curl up under the thin blanket. "Visiting hours start at 9. I'll come get you myself." Gloria stood up. "Sarah, you did good tonight. Taking care of your sister, being careful about accepting help. Those were smart choices. But now it's okay to rest. You're both okay." Sarah didn't respond. She'd heard too many adults say things were okay when they weren't. Gloria seemed to understand because she didn't push further. "Press the call button if you need anything. Try to get some sleep." The door clicked shut behind Gloria, and Sarah immediately got up to check the lock. It worked from the inside. That was something She pulled Mr. Anderson's business card from her pocket and placed it under her pillow, then sat on her bed, facing the door. Sarah? Maya's voice was small in the dim room. What if Mom has to stay in the hospital for a long time? Then we'll figure it out, Sarah said firmly, even as her own fear churned in her stomach. Just like we figured out tonight. Mr. Anderson was nice, Maya yawned. Like Daddy used to be. Sarah's hands clenched in her lap. Go to sleep, Maya. But Maya's words had already unleashed memories Sarah tried to keep locked away. Their father had been nice too, at first. Nice when he tucked them in at night. Nice when he brought home surprise treats. Nice right up until he walked out the door and never came back. The room fell silent except for Maya's congested breathing. Sarah watched the digital clock tick past midnight, past 1, past 2. Every time she heard footsteps in the hallway, her body tensed. Each time the security guard passed their door, she held her breath until the footsteps faded. Around 3 in the morning, Maya started whimpering in her sleep. Sarah was beside her in seconds, but when she touched her sister's forehead, the skin was burning hot. Sarah hit the call button, her heart racing. Nurse Chen appeared within minutes, turning on the soft wall light. Her fever spiked, the nurse said after checking Maya's temperature again. 103.4 now. We need to cool her down. Sarah helped the nurse remove Maya's sweater and place cool compresses on her neck and forehead. Maya woke up confused, crying for their mother. Mama's getting better, Sarah whispered, holding Maya's hand while Nurse Chen gave her more medicine. She'll be so proud of how brave you're being. Don't leave, Maya pleaded, clutching Sarah's fingers. Never, Sarah promised. She climbed into Maya's narrow bed, letting her sister curl against her like they used to do during thunderstorms. I'm right here. Nurse Chen adjusted the blanket over them both. Try to keep her cool, but don't let her get cold. I'll be back in an hour to check her temperature again. Sarah nodded, her cheek pressed against Maya's hot forehead. Outside their window, the parking lot lights cast long shadows across the floor. In the hallway, footsteps passed their door again. Regular, routine, safe. Maya's breathing gradually steadied as the medicine took effect. But Sarah kept watching the door, kept listening for footsteps, kept her body curled protectively around her sister. The night stretched on, a blur of temperature checks and medicine doses. As dawn began to lighten the window, Sarah finally felt her own exhaustion taking over. Maya's fever had dropped to 101.2, and her breathing was deeper, more regular. The shelter was quiet except for the hum of the heating system. Sarah thought about their mother in the hospital, probably lying awake worrying about them. Thought about Mr. Anderson and his daughter, who'd needed help once. Thought about Gloria coming to take them to the hospital in a few hours. We're okay, she whispered to herself, testing how the words felt. Not great, not perfect, but okay. Maybe that was enough for now. The sun rose over Detroit, painting the parking lot in shades of pink and gold. Sarah's eyes grew heavy, but her arms stayed locked around Maya. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new reasons to be afraid. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. They were together. They were okay. And for the first time since their mother collapsed that morning, Sarah let herself close her eyes and sleep. The hospital corridors smelled like bleach and instant coffee. Sarah sat in a plastic chair outside her mother's room, watching Maya color with crayons Gloria had brought from the shelter. The morning sun streamed through large windows, making the linoleum floor shine. Girls, Dr. Roberts stepped out of their mother's room, his face serious. Let's talk about your mom's condition. Sarah straightened, her fingers gripping the chair's edge. She'd seen that expression before, on the day the police told them their father wasn't coming back. The pneumonia is severe, Dr. Roberts said, crouching down to their level. We're giving her strong antibiotics, but her body needs time to heal. She'll have to stay here for at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Sarah's voice cracked. Maya's crayon stopped moving across the paper. Maybe longer. We need to make sure her lungs are completely clear before she goes home. Sarah's mind raced. 2 weeks in the shelter. 2 weeks of strange beds and hourly checks. 2 weeks of uncertainty. Can we stay with her? Maya asked, her crayon forgotten. Dr. Roberts shook his head. She needs rest, and the ICU isn't a place for children. You can visit during regular hours, but What about her jobs? Sarah interrupted. Their mother worked 2 shifts, morning at Joe's diner, evening at the quick stop. I've already called them, Gloria said from behind them. Sarah hadn't heard her approach. Joe's diner. They couldn't hold her position. But the quick stop manager said they'd try to work something out. The walls seemed to close in around Sarah. No job meant no rent. No rent meant no apartment. No apartment meant, Sarah. Maya tugged at her sleeve. Are you crying? Sarah quickly wiped her eyes. No, just tired. She looked at Gloria. Can we see Mom now? Gloria nodded, and Sarah helped Maya gather her crayons. Their mother lay in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, her dark skin ashen against the white sheets. Her eyes fluttered open as they entered. My babies, she whispered, her voice hoarse. You're okay? We're fine, Mama, Sarah said, helping Maya climb carefully onto the edge of the bed. The shelter's taking good care of us. Their mother's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I should have. Don't talk, Mrs. Williams, Gloria interrupted gently. Save your strength. The girls are safe, and that's what matters. Sarah watched her mother drift back to sleep. Her breathing labored even with the oxygen. Maya curled up in the chair by the bed, pulling out her coloring book again. Gloria, a nurse poked her head in. Mr. Anderson is here. He'd like to speak with you. Sarah's head snapped up. She hadn't seen him since that rainy night. Stay with your mother, Gloria said. I'll be right back. But Sarah followed her to the door, listening as Gloria spoke with Mr. Anderson in the hallway. The older girl's sharp, he was saying. She'd be good at the front desk, greeting customers. We could train her, give her real skills. James, she's 8 years old. I met her mother. Lisa, once she recovers. Full benefits, decent salary. Enough to keep those girls together. Sarah's heart pounded. A job. A real job, not just shifts at diners and convenience stores. It's a generous offer, Gloria said carefully. But let's focus on getting her healthy first. Sarah backed away from the door as their voices faded. Maya was humming softly, coloring outside the lines of her book. Everything looked normal, peaceful even. But Sarah felt the weight of each passing minute, knowing their world was shifting beneath their feet. Back at the shelter that afternoon, Sarah watched Maya play with some other kids in the common room. They were drawing pictures, sharing crayons, acting like nothing was wrong. Like their mother wasn't lying in a hospital bed. Like they hadn't lost half their income. Like everything wasn't falling apart. Sarah, one of the shelter workers, Miss Thompson, approached with a stack of clean towels. Would you like to help me sort these? No, thanks. Sarah kept her eyes on Maya. You know, Miss Thompson said, sitting down anyway. It's okay to let others help sometimes. Even just with small things. We don't need help, Sarah snapped. Then, softer, sorry. I need to watch Maya. Miss Thompson nodded and left the towels beside her. As she walked away, Sarah heard her whisper to another worker, poor things. Seen too many kids like them never see their parents again. Sarah's blood turned cold. Never see their parents again. Like their father. Like the other kids here whose parents disappeared into hospitals or prisons or just into thin air. That night, after Maya fell asleep, Sarah crept to the shelter's office. The door was ajar, voices drifting out. 2 weeks minimum in the hospital, Gloria was saying. No income, no family to help. We might need to look at longer-term placement options. Foster care? Another voice asked. Last resort. But if the mother can't provide... Sarah backed away, her legs shaking. Foster care meant separation. Different homes, different schools, different lives. She'd heard the stories from other kids at school. Back in their room, Sarah pulled out her mother's old photo from under her pillow. It was from before their father left, before the 2 jobs, before everything fell apart. They were all smiling, a real family. Maya stirred in her sleep, coughing slightly. The medicine had helped, but she still wasn't completely better. Sarah tucked the photo away and started packing their bags quietly, carefully. They couldn't stay here, couldn't risk being separated. But as she reached for Maya's shoes, her sister's words from that rainy night came back to her. Can we trust him? Mr. Anderson's business card was still under her pillow. A job offer. Benefits. A chance. Sarah's hands trembled as she unpacked the bags. Running wasn't the answer. Not with Maya still sick, not with winter coming, not with their mother alone in the hospital. But neither was sitting still, waiting for the system to tear them apart. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow, she would find Mr. Anderson. Tomorrow, she would make sure they stayed together, no matter what it took. The night stretched on, dark and endless. Sarah lay awake, listening to Maya breathe, planning her next move. Outside their window, Detroit kept moving, uncaring about two little girls whose world was hanging by a thread. Sarah touched the business card under her pillow, feeling the raised letters of Mr. Anderson's name. Trust was a gamble, her mother always said. But sometimes, when you're out of options, you have to roll the dice. Sarah waited until 2 a.m. to start packing. The shelter's night guard had just completed his rounds, which meant she had 45 minutes until his next check. Her hands moved silently in the darkness, stuffing clothes into their backpacks. Sarah. Maya's voice was thick with sleep. What are you doing? Chill. Sarah froze, a shirt half folded in her hands. Go back to sleep? Maya sat up instead, rubbing her eyes. Are we leaving? The question hung in the air between them. Sarah set down the shirt and went to sit on Maya's bed. We have to. They're going to separate us if we stay. But what about Mama? We'll visit her. Find somewhere close to the hospital. Sarah didn't mention she had no idea where that somewhere would be. Maya's fingers twisted in her blanket. I like it here. Miss Thompson said I could join the art class tomorrow. And Mr. Anderson is coming to read stories to the little kids. Sarah's hands clenched. You can't trust him, Maya. He's just pretending to be nice. Like Daddy did? The words hit Sarah like a slap. She stood up, going back to the packing. This isn't about Dad. This is about staying together. But we are together. Maya's voice rose slightly, and Sarah quickly shushed her. Sorry, Maya whispered, but we have beds here. And food. And my cough medicine. Sarah paused, looking at the inhaler on the bedside table. She hadn't thought about Maya's medicine, or food, or the fact that it was 30 degrees outside. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Sarah dove for her bed, pulling the covers up just as the night guard's flashlight beam swept under their door. Her heart hammered until his footsteps faded away. Sarah? Maya's whisper was barely audible. I'm scared. Don't be. I've got it figured out. No, you don't. Maya's voice was suddenly clear, grown up. You're scared too. That's why you want to run away. Sarah opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. When had her 6-year-old sister gotten so smart? Mr. Anderson helped us in the rain, Maya continued. He got us medicine and beds. He's trying to give Mama a job. That's what Dad said too. I've got a new job, girls. Everything's going to be better. Then he left. Mr. Anderson isn't Daddy. Sarah got up again, pacing the small room. The business card in her pocket felt like it was burning a hole through her pajamas. Outside, a car alarm went off briefly. Then silence fell again. If we leave, Sarah said slowly, we'll have nothing. No food, no medicine, no place to sleep. But if we stay, we'll have each other, Maya finished. And Mama will know where to find us. Sarah walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. The parking lot was empty except for a security car, its presence both threatening and reassuring. Tell me about the art class, she said finally. Maya brightened. Miss Thompson says we're going to paint pictures for the new children's wing at the hospital. She said mine might hang right outside Mama's room. Sarah turned back to her sister. In the dim light from the window, Maya looked younger than her 6 years, drowning in her borrowed shelter pajamas. But her eyes were clear, certain. What if it's all lies? Sarah whispered. What if they split us up anyway? Then we run. But not now. Not when Mama's sick and it's cold and... Maya broke off coughing, reaching for her inhaler. Sarah was there in an instant, helping her take the medicine. As Maya's breathing steadied, Sarah made her decision. She began unpacking the bags, putting everything back exactly where it had been. Maya watched silently, her inhaler clutched to her chest. Sarah, she said when Sarah finished, will you sleep in my bed? Like at home? Sarah crawled under the covers next to her sister. Maya immediately curled into her side, small and warm and trusting. Promise me something, Sarah whispered into Maya's braids. Promise if I say we have to run, you'll come with me. No questions. Promise, Maya mumbled, already half asleep. But promise me something too? What? Promise to give Mr. Anderson a chance. Just one. Sarah lay awake long after Maya's breathing evened out. The night guard passed twice more, his flashlight beam a steady reminder of where they were, where they'd chosen to stay. Around dawn, she pulled out Mr. Anderson's cardigan. The edges were worn from her constant handling. His office address was only a few blocks from the hospital. Easy walking distance. Sarah thought about what he'd said that first night. Sometimes good people do exist. She thought about Maya's art class, about their mother's potential job, about the steady meals and warm beds and medicine that kept her sister breathing easily. When the first rays of sun painted the room pink, Sarah made another decision. She'd go to Mr. Anderson's office tomorrow. Not to beg or plead, but to ask hard questions. About the job, about his promises, about why a rich man would bother helping two little girls in the rain. Maya stirred beside her, mumbling in her sleep. Sarah pulled her closer, breathing in the baby shampoo smell of her sister's hair. They'd survived their father leaving, survived their mother's endless work shifts, survived that night in the rain. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive trusting someone too. The shelter began waking up around them. Doors opening, voices in the hallway, the smell of breakfast cooking. Sarah felt Maya stretch and yawn beside her. Time for breakfast? Maya asked sleepily. Yeah. Sarah sat up, pushing away the last thoughts of running. Let's go see what they're serving. Maya climbed out of bed, already chattering about our class. Sarah followed more slowly, touching the business card one last time before leaving it on the bedside table. Tomorrow, she'd get answers. Today, she'd watch her sister paint pictures for the hospital. Today, she'd try to believe in something other than fear. It wasn't much, but for now it was enough. The elevator in Anderson Financial Group smelled like leather and pine. Sarah stood in the corner, her reflection fractured in the mirrored walls. The security guard who'd escorted her up checked his watch. 9:15 a.m. Mr. Anderson's office is right through those doors, he said as the elevator opened. He's expecting you. Sarah stepped out on a thick carpet, her worn sneakers sinking into the pile. The hallway stretched ahead, all glass and steel and morning sunlight. She thought about Maya back at the shelter, probably starting her art class by now. Sarah. Mr. Anderson stood in his office doorway. He wore a different suit than the night they'd met, but his eyes were the same, careful kind. I'm glad you came. She followed him into the office, noting the exits, 2 doors, 3 windows. Floor 42, according to the elevator. Too high to run. Would you like some hot chocolate? He gestured to a tray on his desk. Or there's water, juice. I want answers. Sarah remained standing, her back straight. About the job for my mom? Of course. He sat behind his desk, not commenting on her refusal to sit. What would you like to know? Everything. The pay. The hours. Why you're really helping us. Mr. Anderson pulled out a folder. The position is front desk coordinator. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Full medical benefits from day one, which means your mother's hospital stay would be covered going forward. Starting salary is $45,000 per year. Sarah's mind raced, tried to do the math. Their mother made maybe $25,000 between both jobs, working 7 days a week. That's too much, she said finally. Nobody gives that much to someone they don't know. Your mother would earn every penny. This is a professional position with real responsibilities. He opened the folder. Would you like to see the job description? Sarah stepped closer, reading over the papers. Words jumped out at her. Client relations, scheduling, database management. She's never done these things, Sarah said quietly. She's a waitress and a cashier. She was also top of her class in high school, according to Gloria's background check. And she put herself through 2 years of community college before you were born. Sarah's head snapped up. How do you know that? Because I do my homework, Sarah. Just like you're doing right now. He leaned back in his chair. Would you like to know why I'm really helping? She nodded, her throat tight. 3 years ago, my daughter overdosed on heroin. The words hung in the air. Sarah's fingers gripped the edge of his desk. She survived, Mr. Anderson continued, but only because a homeless man found her in time. Called 911. Stayed with her until the ambulance came. He could have robbed her, left her there, or just walked away. Instead, he helped. What happened to him? I tried to find him afterward, to thank him, help him, but he was gone. Mr. Anderson's hands clasped together on the desk. My daughter's clean now, working as a drug counselor in Chicago. And I made a promise, whenever I see someone who needs help, really needs it, I stop. I help. No strings attached. Like with us, Sarah whispered. Like with you. Two little girls in the rain, trying so hard to protect each other. He smiled slightly. Reminded me of someone else I know. Sarah finally sat down, her legs shaky. But what if Mom can't learn the job? What if she gets sick again? What if? Then we'll figure it out. That's what people do when they care about each other. You don't even know us. I know enough. He pulled another paper from the folder. I know you've missed 3 days of school now. I know Maya's art teacher says she has real talent. I know your mother worked 2 jobs for 3 years without a single sick day until this pneumonia hit. Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. I also know you packed your bags last night, he said gently. Planning to run. Sarah stiffened. How? The night guard saw you through the door crack during rounds. He called Gloria, who called me. Why didn't they stop us? Because sometimes people need to make their own choices. You chose to stay. That took courage. A knock at the door made Sarah jump. His secretary poked her head in. Mr. Anderson? The hospital called. Mrs. Williams is asking for Sarah. Something about Maya's art project. Sarah stood up, so fast her chair almost tipped over. Is Maya okay? She's fine, Mr. Anderson said quickly. Want a ride to the hospital? We can finish talking there. The elevator ride down was quiet. Sarah watched the floor numbers tick by, thinking about everything he'd said. About his daughter. About choices. About care. In the car, she finally asked the question that had been burning since that first night. What if you're wrong about us? About Mom? What if we mess everything up? Mr. Anderson kept his eyes on the road, but his voice was soft. Sarah, look at everything you've already handled. You got your sister to safety. You made tough choices. You came to my office alone to protect your family's interests. You're 8 years old, and you've shown better judgment than most adults I know. They pulled into the hospital parking lot. Through the windows, Sarah could see Maya standing with Gloria near the entrance, holding a large piece of paper. One last thing, Mr. Anderson said before she got out. The job offer isn't charity. It's an investment in your mother, in you girls, in our community. But it's your choice whether to trust that or not. Sarah looked at Maya, bouncing excitedly on her toes. At Gloria, watching them both with a smile. At the hospital where her mother was getting stronger every day. Maya's art class, she said suddenly. The one painting pictures for the children's wing? Yes. Was that your idea? He nodded. The wing needed decorating. The kids needed a project. Seemed like a good match. Sarah reached for the door handle, then paused. Thank you for stopping that night. For everything. Thank you for giving me a chance to help. He smiled. Go see what Maya painted. I'll talk to your mother this afternoon about the job details. Sarah got out of the car, walking toward her sister. Maya saw her and started running, paper flapping in her hands. Sarah, look what I made. It's us. You and me and Mama and Mr. Anderson, all holding hands. Sarah looked at the childish figures on the paper, at the bright sun in the corner, at the huge smiles on every face. Maybe Maya had been right all along. Maybe sometimes the scariest choice, to trust, to hope, to believe, was also the right one. It's beautiful, Sarah said, hugging her sister close. Perfect for Mama's room. Above them, the morning sun broke through Detroit's clouds, warming their faces. Sarah felt something inside her shift, like a door slowly opening. They weren't okay yet, but for the first time since that rainy night, Sarah believed they would be. The ICU doors swished open at exactly 9 a.m. Sarah clutched Maya's hand as they followed Dr. Roberts down the familiar corridor. But today was different. Today their mother was being moved out of intensive care. She's much stronger, Dr. Roberts said, checking his clipboard. The antibiotics are working well. We're moving her to a regular room where she can sit up, have more visitors. Maya skipped beside them, swinging Sarah's arm. Can we stay longer than an hour now? A little longer, yes. But your mother still needs rest. They turned down a new hallway, brighter than the ICU. Maya's artwork hung every few feet. Not just hers, but paintings from all the shelter kids. The walls looked like a rainbow had exploded across them. Look, Maya pointed. There's mine. Her picture of their family hung right outside their mother's new room. Sarah studied it again, the four stick figures holding hands, the sun, the huge smiles. It didn't look real, but maybe that was the point. Maybe it was what could be, not what was. Their mother sat propped up in the new bed, no oxygen tubes this time. Her dark skin had more color, and her eyes were clear when she spotted them. My babies, she smiled. Holding out her arms, Maya ran to her. But Sarah hung back, watching. Their mother looked better, yes, but still too thin, too tired. Sarah? Her mother patted the bed. Come here, baby. Sarah moved closer, perching on the edge of the mattress. How do you feel? Better every day. The doctors say maybe another week. Then I can go home. She stopped, remembering they didn't have a home to go to anymore. Mr. Anderson's coming to talk to you today, Sarah said quickly. About the job? Her mother's face tightened. Sarah, I don't know. It seems too good to be true. That's what I thought too. Sarah pulled out the job description she'd memorized. But it's real, Mom. Benefits from day one. 9 to 5, weekdays only. No more night shifts at the quick stop. I don't have the skills for an office job. They'll train you. And you went to college, didn't you? Before me and Maya? Her mother's eyes widened. How did you know about that? Mr. Anderson did a background check. He said you were smart, top of your class. That was a long time ago. But you can learn again. Maya piped up. Like how you taught me to read. A nurse came in with medication and fresh water. Sarah watched their mother swallow the pills, noticed how her hands shook less than before. Tell me about this job, their mother said finally. Everything you know? Sarah repeated everything Mr. Anderson had told her. The salary, the hours, the training. She watched her mother's face as the numbers sank in. 45,000, her mother whispered. That's almost double what I make now. And benefits, Sarah emphasized. For all of us? But why? Why would he do this? Sarah hesitated, then told her about Mr. Anderson's daughter. About the homeless man who saved her. About promises and choices and second chances. Their mother was quiet for a long time after Sarah finished. Outside the room, they could hear other families visiting, children laughing, life going on. Did I ever tell you girls why I dropped out of college? She asked suddenly. Sarah and Maya shook their heads. I got pregnant with you, Sarah. Your father promised to help, said he'd work while I finished school. But then he lost his job, started drinking. I had to choose school or a steady paycheck to feed you. You chose us, Sarah whispered. Every time. But maybe now I could choose both. A knock at the door made them all look up. Mr. Anderson stood there, a folder in his hand. Mrs. Williams? I don't mean to interrupt, but I thought you might want to discuss the position. Sarah grabbed Maya's hand. We should go. Let you talk business. But their mother held on to Sarah's arm. Stay. Both of you. We're a family. We make decisions together now. Mr. Anderson pulled up a chair, opening his folder. Sarah listened as he explained everything again, the job requirements, the training program, the benefits package. She watched her mother ask smart questions about healthcare coverage, about advancement opportunities, about childcare options. The position starts whenever you're fully recovered, Mr. Anderson concluded. No rush. Your health comes first. Their mother looked at her daughters, then back at Mr. Anderson. Can I think about it overnight? Of course. He stood up. I'll come back tomorrow morning for your answer. After he left, their mother pulled both girls close. What do you think, babies? Should Mama try something new? Yes. Maya bounced on the bed. And we can have dinner together every night, like Sarah said. Sarah? Their mother looked at her older daughter. You've been taking care of everyone. What do you think? Sarah thought about that rainy night, about choices and trust and fear, about Maya's painting with its impossible smiles. I think, she said slowly, that sometimes good things can be real, even when we're scared to believe in them. Their mother kissed her forehead, then Maya's. When did my girls get so wise? They spent the rest of the visit planning. Sarah described the office building. Maya talked about her new school friends. Their mother asked about apartment possibilities near work. When visiting hours ended, their mother was tired but smiling. I'll see you tomorrow? After I talk to Mr. Anderson? We'll be here, Sarah promised. In the hallway, Maya stopped to straighten her painting. It's not right yet, she said, tilting her head. The smiles need to be bigger. Sarah looked at the picture again. Maybe Maya had seen the truth before any of them. That happiness wasn't something that happened to you, but something you chose to believe in, to work for, to create. The smiles are perfect, Sarah said, taking her sister's hand. Just like they are. They walked back to the shelter together, past other patients, rooms with Maya's classmates, artwork brightening the walls. Each picture was different colors, different stories, different hopes. But they all had one thing in common. Every single one showed a future brighter than the past. Just like theirs, the Anderson Financial Group lobby gleamed with morning sunlight. Sarah stood beside her mother, who sat in a wheelchair as required by hospital policy. Maya bounced around them, touching the marble walls, peering into the fountain, waving at everyone who passed. "This is where I'll work?" their mother asked, her voice small. "The front desk is right there." Sarah pointed to the circular reception area. "That's where you'll sit." Mr. Anderson emerged from the elevator, straightening his tie. "Mrs. Williams, girls. Ready for the tour?" Their mother gripped the wheelchair arms. "Yes, but could we do it without the chair? I can walk." "Mom," Sarah started to protest, but their mother was already standing, shaky but determined. "I want to walk into my new workplace on my own feet." Mr. Anderson nodded, seeming to understand. A security guard quietly folded the wheelchair and took it away. "Let's start with your desk." He led them to the reception area. "You'll have 2 monitors, a headset for calls, and a view of the entire lobby." Sarah watched her mother run her fingers along the smooth desk surface. The current receptionist had family photos displayed. Soon their mother could put pictures here too. "Through here is the break room," Mr. Anderson continued. They followed him down a hallway lined with abstract paintings. "Coffee, tea, snacks, all complimentary. Lunch break is an hour." Maya tugged at their mother's sleeve. "Can we bring you lunch sometimes?" "Of course," Mr. Anderson answered before their mother could. "Family is always welcome." The break room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Detroit. Their mother sank into one of the comfortable chairs, catching her breath. "You okay, Mom?" Sarah asked quietly. "Just need a minute. Still getting my strength back." Mr. Anderson checked his watch. "Why don't we take a break? I'll have someone bring up some water." As they waited, a young woman stopped in the doorway. "Oh, sorry. Didn't know anyone was." "Wait, Maya." "Miss Jennifer." Maya ran to hug the woman's legs. "Sarah, look. It's my art teacher from the shelter." Jennifer smiled at their mother. "I work here part-time. Accounting department. The shelter is just my volunteer gig." Sarah stared at her. "You work here too?" 3 years now. Mr. Anderson believes in giving people chances." Jennifer winked at Maya. "Speaking of art, want to see something cool?" She led them to a conference room where, displayed prominently on the wall, hung Maya's painting from the hospital. Not a copy, the original. "But," Sarah looked at Mr. Anderson. "How?" "The hospital got a new batch of artwork. I asked if we could have this one. Seemed appropriate for our family wall." "Family wall?" their mother asked. He gestured to the other frames. Photos of employees with their families, children's artwork, celebration pictures. "Every person who works here is part of our community," he explained. "We celebrate that." Their mother's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away, but not before Sarah saw them fall. They finished the tour slowly, their mother needing frequent rest breaks. Sarah memorized everything. The security desk where she and Maya would check in after school, the cafeteria where they could eat with their mother, the small library where they could do homework while waiting for her shift to end. "And this," Mr. Anderson said finally, "is our training room. You'll spend your first 2 weeks here, learning our systems." The room was bright, with comfortable chairs and new computers. A training manual sat on each desk, thick, but not intimidating. "I haven't touched a computer in years," their mother admitted. "That's what training is for." Mr. Anderson handed her a manual. "Take this home, look it over. No pressure. Just familiarize yourself with the terms." Their mother clutched the manual like a lifeline. "Home," she repeated softly. "About that." Mr. Anderson pulled out another folder. "There's an apartment building 3 blocks from here. Company-owned, well-maintained. 2-bedroom units available." Sarah's heart raced. "We can afford that?" Employee housing rate. Utilities included. He handed their mother some photos. Would you like to see it? The apartment building was red brick, 6 stories tall, with a small playground out front. Their potential unit was on the 3rd floor, facing east. Morning sun, their mother murmured. Walking through the empty rooms, girls could share the bigger bedroom. Maya ran from room to room, her footsteps echoing. Sarah, there's a bathtub. And look, a real kitchen. Sarah stood in what would be their bedroom, measuring the space with her eyes. 2 beds would fit easily. Maybe even desks for homework. The shelter can help with furniture, Mr. Anderson said from the doorway. And your first month's rent is covered by our employee assistance program. Their mother leaned against the kitchen counter, looking overwhelmed. It's all happening so fast. Too fast? Sarah asked, suddenly worried. No, baby. She took a deep breath. 3 weeks ago, I was working 2 jobs, barely keeping us afloat. Then I got sick and I thought we'd lose everything. Instead, you found a new path, Mr. Anderson said quietly. The question is, are you ready to take it? Maya came running back in. Mom, the lady next door has a daughter my age. I saw them in the hallway. Sarah watched their mother straighten up, squaring her shoulders like she did before every long work shift. Where do I sign? The paperwork took an hour. Lease agreement, employment contract, benefit forms. Sarah read every page over their mother's shoulder, still half expecting to find a catch. The apartment will be ready on Monday, Mr. Anderson said as they finished. Same day you start training, if you feel strong enough. Back at the hospital that evening, Sarah helped their mother pack her few belongings. The doctors had cleared her for discharge tomorrow. Are you scared? Sarah asked, folding hospital gowns. Terrified, their mother smiled, but also excited. Like when you were born, scared out of my mind, but so ready for the new adventure. What if? Sarah hesitated. What if it doesn't work out? Then we try something else. Together. She pulled Sarah close. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough before. Sorry you had to be the strong one. You were strong, Mom. Working 2 jobs, taking care of us. Different kind of strong. I was surviving. Now, maybe we can start living. Maya burst in with her latest artwork. Their new apartment building in bright crayon colors. Look, I drew our new home. Sarah looked at the picture, at her mother's tired but hopeful face, at Maya's endless optimism. Home wasn't just a place, she realized. It was this family hope, new beginnings. And maybe, just maybe, they'd finally found theirs. Morning sunlight streamed through uncurtained windows, painting stripes across Sarah's new bedroom floor. She lay in her bed, a real bed, not a shelter cot, listening to the quiet sounds of their mother making breakfast in their kitchen. Their kitchen, their apartment, their home. Maya still slept in the bed across the room, curled around her teddy bear. The shelter had helped them get furniture, beds, a table, chairs, even a small couch. Nothing matched, everything secondhand, but it was theirs. Girls, their mother called. Breakfast. Sarah slid out of bed, her bare feet touching warm wooden floors. No more cold linoleum, no more shared bathrooms, no more hourly checks by night guards. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Their mother stood at the stove wearing her new work outfit, a navy blue dress with matching jacket, her hair neatly braided. First day, she said, trying to smile through her nervousness. How do I look? Beautiful, Sarah said honestly. Maya stumbled in, rubbing her eyes. Can we walk you to work, Mama? Every morning. Their mother set plates of eggs and toast on the table. Mr. Anderson said it's fine if you girls wait in the library until school starts. It's on your way. They ate quickly, all 3 feeling the excitement and tension of new beginnings. Sarah helped Maya pick out clothes for school, while their mother checked her training manual one last time. The walk to Anderson Financial Group took exactly 12 minutes. Sarah counted each step, memorizing the route. Past the coffee shop where their mother could get her morning coffee. Past the park where Maya could play after school. Past the bus stop they'd use on rainy days. The lobby was already busy with morning workers. Their mother hesitated at the entrance, but Maya tugged her forward. Look, there's my painting. The family portrait still hung in the conference room, visible through the glass walls. Their mother squared her shoulders, drawing strength from the sight. Mrs. Williams. The training supervisor greeted them warmly. Ready to start? Yes. Their mother hugged them both. Be good at school. I'll see you this afternoon. Sarah watched her mother follow the supervisor, back straight, head high. No more waitress uniform, no more double shifts, no more coming home exhausted at midnight. Come on, she told Maya. We'll be late for school. Their new school was different too. The shelter had helped transfer their records, get new uniforms, arrange for free lunches. Their teachers knew their situation, but didn't treat them differently. That afternoon, Sarah and Maya waited in the Anderson Financial Group library, doing homework until their mother finished training. Other employees' children were there too, sharing colored pencils, helping each other with math problems. How was your first day? Sarah asked when their mother appeared at 5 o'clock sharp. Overwhelming, but she was smiling. So much to learn, but everyone's patient, helpful. They walked home together, stopping at the small grocery store for dinner ingredients. Their mother could buy fresh vegetables now, meat that wasn't nearly expired, bread that wasn't day-old discounted. Can we have spaghetti? Maya asked. With real sauce? Not the cans? Of course, baby. At home, Sarah helped cook while Maya set the table, their table, in their kitchen in their apartment. The windows were still bare, the walls empty except for Maya's drawings, but it felt more like home every hour. I have something to show you girls, their mother said over dinner. She pulled out her phone, a new one provided by work. Look at this. It was a banking app showing her first direct deposit. Not a handful of cash from Joe's Diner. Not a minimum wage check from Quick Stop. A real salary with benefits listed below. Is that all for us? Maya asked, eyes wide at the numbers. That's for our future, their mother said. For rent, for food, for saving for college. Sarah stared at the screen. Numbers that meant stability, security, possibility. After dinner, Maya had a bath in their own bathroom, while Sarah did the dishes. Their mother sat at the kitchen table, studying her training manual. Sarah, she called softly. Come here a minute. Sarah dried her hands, sitting next to her mother. I need to say something. Their mother took her hand. Thank you for being so strong when I couldn't be, for taking care of Maya that night, for trusting Mr. Anderson when I was too sick to make decisions. I was scared, Sarah admitted. Almost ran away from the shelter. Almost didn't trust him, but you did. You chose to believe things could get better. She squeezed Sarah's hand. That's real strength. Not just surviving, but being brave enough to hope. Maya emerged from the bathroom in pajamas, hair wrapped in a towel. Can we watch TV? The lady next door said we can share their Netflix. Their mother laughed. One show before bed. Then homework check. They squeezed onto their small couch, Maya between them, wet head resting on Sarah's shoulder. On the TV, cartoon characters had adventures and learned lessons and always found happy endings. Sarah thought about their own story. Not a fairy tale. Their father was still gone. Their mother still had years of hard work ahead. They still lived on careful budgets and secondhand furniture. But they had this, a home, a future, each other. They had morning walks to work and school, family dinners, Netflix before bedtime. They had Maya's artwork on the walls, their mother's growing confidence, Sarah's slowly melting fear. At bedtime, their mother tucked them in, something she hadn't done since taking the night shift at Quick Stop 2 years ago. Mama? Maya asked sleepily. Are we going to be okay now? Yes, baby. We're going to be okay. Sarah lay in her bed, listening to the night sounds of their new home. A siren wailed in the distance, but it didn't make her jump anymore. A car door slammed in the parking lot, but she didn't need to check the windows. She thought about the day their mother got sick, about the rainy night that changed everything. Thought about choices and trust and second chances. Maya's painting hung on their bedroom wall, the stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. Not just a child's dream anymore, but a blueprint for their future. Their mother's voice drifted from the kitchen, humming as she prepared for tomorrow. Not exhausted, not worried, just content. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the last of her walls crumble. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living, growing, hoping. They were home. And this time, she knew in her heart it would last.